Good morning. Today I'm going to continue my discussion about prime number and its relation with multiplication. Now, before I start the discussion about multiplication, it's good to go back with the simple idea that we learn in mathematics. So normally when we start to introduce some operation in mathematics to our kids, there are some order that normally we will go through, and this is something very important based on their uh, thinking development. So now if we look at the history of mathematics, what happened is actually our knowledge of mathematics started with counting. So for example, if we want to introduce number to our kids, so we start from counting. For example, this is 1, this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So I think it's good if we can have something to help us. You can get from our stuff at home, yeah, something that you use normally or the kids know, for example, pencil or the other things, yeah. Now, when we introduce the idea of addition and subtraction, those ideas actually based on counting. So for example, if we look at 3 plus 2, so what happened is we have, let's say, 2 pencils, and then we have another 3 pencils, and then you put them together. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's just counting basically. Or if you now say, what is 5 minus 2 or 5 subtracted by 2? So the idea is also still counting. You see, we have 5 pencil and then you take away 2. We take 1 and then we take 2. Now what we have now, it's just 1, 2, 3 pencil. So this simple idea gives them a better understanding rather than we just write down number, 5 minus 2 or 5 subtracted by 2 equals to 3. Because what happens if we have something to visualize the idea of it, that will benefit for them because, their abstract idea is not developed well like us at that point. So this is very helpful for them. Now, talking about the addition with bigger number, for example, if you talk about the addition for, say, 2 digits or larger, actually, this part is a bit more challenging because they need to know what is called by place value. So normally from the addition or subtraction using one number, one digit, we will go straight to multiplication. So the idea of multiplication is actually not that difficult, and well, it's still like counting, but now in this case we add a bit more idea, which is we call it a grouping. For example, if we say what is 3 times 4? Now, what it means by 3 times 4, it's 3 groups of 4 members. So we have 3 groups of 4. Now, in this case, we'll need to have something else. So for example, if you can have like a container, yeah. So 3 times 4 means 3. containers, and each container will have 4 members. So 1, 2, sorry, 1, 1, and then 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, and 4, 4, 4. So you see, 3 times 4, 3 groups of equally set of 4 members. Yeah? So we have equally set of 4. Here, 3 equally sets of 4. Now, how about 4 times 3? Well, if you now talk about 4 times 3, therefore we have 4 groups of 3. So what happens is now we have containers, yeah, 4 containers. Let me get one more. Okay, so 4 groups. Now in each of this container we have 3 members. 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3. 4 times 3. 4 groups of 3. Well, of course, if you calculate the number, if you count how many pencils we have for the all of it, yeah, 3 times 4 and 4 times 3 will get us the same value, which is 12. Yeah, but it's good to give them the idea of multiplication by introducing them about this grouping, because they know what to do with multiplication, what happens with the multiplication. And next, you can ask your kid, for example, so can you show me how the, let's say 2 times 5. So in this case, your kid has to have 2 container and then put 5 pencils in each of it. Yeah? So I think the next step, of course, if your kid already get the idea of multiplication by doing this grouping, yeah, now what we can do is we can give them like a table, yeah, for a multiplication. So I think you are familiar with this, because I believe in, when we learn about this stuff when we were in the elementary level, our teacher probably push us to memorize it, right? So for example, we have a table like 1 times 1 equals to 1, 1 times 2 equals to 2, 1 times 3 equals to 3, 1 times 4 equals to 4, and so on. And the next one is, 2 times 1 equals to 1, sorry, 2, and then 2 times 2 equals to 4, 2 times 3 equals to 6, 2 times 4 equals to 8, and so on. And then you continue with the next one, 3 times 1, and so on until you end up, 10 times 10. Well, I think it is good to give them something like this. But you see, sometimes if we can give them something which is also very useful, yeah, I guess that's also a good thing to give this, yeah. So what happened is, actually in mathematics, we also learn about the pattern. Yeah, pattern. And mathematics is also a study about pattern. Now, see, normally, if you can have like a table of number, for example, from 1 until 100, like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until 10, and then 11, 20, and then 21, and so on. Yeah. So we can show them what happened with those multiplication. For example, this one is the multiple of 5. So you see, this is 5, and then 10, and then 15, 20, and then 25, and then 30, 35, 40. So the goal of this is that they start to see the patterns, what happened with the multiple of 5. So it jumps from this number to that number, and then from 10 to 15, and then from 15 to 20. And then they start to see how this multiple is developed. For example, you see the ones, in this case 5, and then 0, 5, 0, 5, 0, 5, 0, and so on. So this is something very good also to show them, yeah. Um, like if you look at the multiple of 2, for example, this is 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and so on. So they start to see how they are located in this table, yeah. And you can get another table like this now for the multiple of 3 and so on, right? So that's normally we introduce the multiplication, basic multiplication for kids. Yeah, I haven't talked about the multiple, the multiplication of 2 digits, because they require something that we call it the place value, and it's a bit challenging when you try to bring all of it at the same time. It will, confuse your kids. So let's try to give it just one by one, and I guess it's better. Now, if we go back to the discussion that we had yesterday about prime number, why this number is amazing. So prime number, again, the number that has factor equal to 1 and itself, yeah. So for example, 2, and then 3, and then 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, and so on. So yesterday I mentioned that basically you can create any number with prime numbers. For example, if you talk about 4, yeah, so in this case equals to 2 plus 2. Now if you have this, that means we have 2 groups of 2. So we can also write down 2 plus 2 to be 2 multiplied by 2. Okay? Now let's get different number. For example, 6. So you can write down 6 to be, 2 plus 2 plus 2. So in this case, we have, 3 groups of 2. Yeah, 3 times 2. Well, you can also say that 6 equal to 3 plus 3, which give us 2 times 3. Okay? So 6 equal to 3 times 2 or 2 times 3. Now if we look at again the other number, for example, 8, yeah, it is 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. So it is 4 times 2, yeah. So now, 4, we have learned before, it's just 2 times 2, and then we multiplied by 2. So what happened was, when we tried to get a number from, the prime number, actually it is more useful when we can express the number in terms of the multiplication. That's why today I'm talking about the relation between prime number and multiplication. So you see, 8 is 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, but at the same time, what happened is it's also 2 times 2 times 2. And this one is more important actually compared to this one. Yeah? The multiplication is more important, because what happened is later they will see the further topic, which we call it the exponent. Yeah, and in that case, we'll need to introduce them how to do the prime multiplication of a number. So if you look at again, for example, 4, it's 2 times 2. Now 6, 2 times 3, or 3 times 2. Yeah. Now if you look at 8, for example, it's 2 times 2 times 2. Yeah. Now if we look at 9, so in this case 9, it's 3 times 3. Now, if you go a bit further, for example, 10, yeah, of course, in the beginning, the kids will tell us, okay, 10 is just 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, like this, or we can say it's 5 times 2. So in this case, 10 equals to, the prime number 5 multiplied by the prime number 2. Yeah. And this idea is very important later when they deal with the exponent. Yeah. So I think that's what I want to introduce for today. Yeah. And next time we will discuss something else which related to the addition for two digits number, which we will introduce the kids about the place value. All right, thank you, and see you next time.